Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we're on the extreme fantail of Battleship New Jersey, and we're going to talk about the two 40mm gun tubs back here that are the only remaining extant gun tubs on the ship. There are several places where you can see the footprint of some of the gun tubs. There are a couple on the 01 level that still have a third of their shield intact, but these two gun tubs back here are the only ones that the Iowa-class battleships kept intact into the 80s. So we're going to talk about what they were for. We got the idea for this video because we were back here raising the ship's glad rags, or our signal flags, from where we normally store them inside the ship below this hatch. Now they're all pre-positioned on the line in order, and on March 21st, 2024, when we move the ship from Camden, as long as the wind isn't abysmal, we're going to have all the glad rags flying so that the ship really looks impressive, because we're going to have more cameras on us on that day than possibly ever before in the ship's history. Certainly any time in the last 20 years or so. So these gun positions at the back of the ship don't show up in the earliest plans for American fast battleships. However, while under construction, the North Carolina, South Dakota, and Iowa-class battleships all had positions for medium anti-aircraft guns built in at the fantail. These positions, depending on the ship, were originally supposed to be for the 1.1-inch Chicago piano, but they were large enough to accommodate a full quadruple 40mm mount, and that's what all 10 of the completed American fast battleships ended up with during World War II. Installation of these involved basically just sinking them into the deck of the ship. So if you're in the space directly below this, there's a huge headbanger there where the gun tub is sunk in, and you just have to like crawl under it to get to the space between the two gun tubs, which was originally for the ship's crane motor equipment, for the boat crane or aviation crane that would have been back here. And then when that was removed from the Iowa-class battleships, it got turned into the Nixie anti-torpedo decoy room. When New Jersey had her anti-aircraft guns removed in 1968, preparatory to the Vietnam War, most of the 40mm tubs were cut away entirely. It freed up deck space, they weren't needed for anything else, but they intentionally chose to leave these intact. And I suspect that part of the reason for that was the flight deck back here on the fantail. The Iowa-class battleships had operated helicopters during the 1950s. However, those helicopters were relatively small. When she was reactivated for the Vietnam War, New Jersey's flight deck was able to accommodate some of the largest helicopters then in use, including Sea Knights, Chinooks, and Sea Stallions. These aircraft have very large footprints as far as their rotors are concerned, and so that constitutes a hazard to the sailors, especially if there's some sort of accident on landing. And so the gun tubs back here seem to have been retained in part as a place for the crew to be able to run in an emergency, and also as a place where you could store some damage control equipment. So as you can see down here in the gun tub, the bulkhead comes up pretty much chest high. I can very easily duck down, and if there is an explosion on the fantail from the aviation gasoline on a helicopter, or the thing comes in on an angle and rotor blades start shearing off and flying all over the place. This was designed as splinter protection and protection against some small arms fire during World War II, so it has room for you to get down and hide. Also, you'll notice that we have positions for fire hose back here. So there is firefighting equipment, damage control equipment back here. I suspect some of the flight crash teams would have been positioned back here. In an emergency, after an explosion happens or something else, when they get back up from cover, they've got the equipment they need to go and start to fight that fire. You can see the base ring in the deck where the 40mm gun originally was located, and it has a through-deck penetration for where it's getting its power from. Another interesting archaeological feature here. This is where the Mark 51 director was that aimed this gun. And actually, These two mounts got a later director in the late 50s. That might have been a Mark 63. But it was intended to be used with the 3-inch 50 caliber guns that they were going to rearm these ships with. However, they ended up not doing that. So most of the director platform was cut down. However, it wasn't cut smooth. Also on top of there, you can see one of the J davits that's associated with the hatchback here. A much later installation, and this one looks like it's 1980s, although in theory it could be from the 60s, is this mushroom air vent. This is for sucking, ventilating air down into the ship. At the aft part of the ship here is the Chief Petty Officer's mess and the Chief Petty Officer's berthing spaces. So I suspect this ventilating equipment was installed at that time for those spaces. You can tell that some changes have been made to this gun tub. Normally, there should be a cutout much narrower than this, which would have been the ladder way for the crew to get in, but you can see, for whatever reason, it's been expanded, and actually from the inside here, yeah, you can sort of see from the outside, they cut it all the way down to the deck, and then later on welded this in here, probably so that all the water back up here on the fantail doesn't come back in and flood this space. Also, you can see that at some point they made a cutout here, and there was a bracket for mounting something. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Once upon a time, it seems like they would have stored trash bags back here, like as they're taking trash up out of the galley, but you're underway, not going to dispose of it. It would have been stored in this location, and I'm wondering if there was some sort of platform for dumping stuff. The ship has an incinerator and a trash compactor for getting rid of most of the trash, but some of the metals and other waste objects on the ship that would have just been thrown overboard, that might have been done from this position. I'm just not 100% sure on that. Other features you can see, very common on 40mm mounts, you can see that there are cutouts around the bottom here. That's for the water to drain out that has collected in there. You can see there's a couple, and there's even some that have been welded over on this side. Interestingly, this part of the gun tub has been doubled over so that now it's about 1 inch thick. It has two more or less 1/2 inch thick pieces of plate on it. Not entirely sure why that is. I feel like the exterior part of the tub is more likely to take damage than this kind of forward outboard quarter of the tub. Maybe they were having really bad wastage issues and they just doubled it over. Yeah, you'll notice that the tub comes down to a lower angle here. That was so that we could engage both really low-flying aircraft like torpedo planes and small suicide boats that we were expecting to face near the end of the war at Okinawa and the invasion of Japan. So many of the gun tubs on this ship, you'll see on the outboard facing area, the wall goes from being about 4 feet high down to about 3 foot high in this gradual curve to let the guns depress more. Also should be on this wall, and there aren't many remnants of it left, that appears to be no longer extant at all, would have been brackets welded in here that could have taken the clips of ammunition for the 40mm guns. So that would have been ready service ammunition. In wartime, they would have been stored out here so that the loaders could just grab them and drop them right in. There are 40mm magazines below us, and I suspect there would have been a hatch behind the gun tub somewhere where somebody would have just passed them straight up from down below. But I'm not sure which of the weld marks back here is representative of that. These would have had blue painted tarps that covered them to help keep those projectiles relatively safe. And there would have also been racks mounted in here for the helmet for the gun crew. A 40mm gun like this would have a crew of about a dozen guys associated with it, between the director and the gun itself. And so all their helmets would have been stored in here, especially in wartime, so that they could just jump in, grab their helmet, their life vest, and they're ready to go. So that's it for the starboard side tub, but Iowa-class battleships are never symmetrical. So let's go over to the port side tub and see what's in there. So this gun tub has some extremely late design features added. They're associated with the RPV drones that were added to New Jersey probably around 1988. If you're interested in more information about the RPVs, we've done a series of videos on them. Most recently, there's one linked in the description below about the drone control radar dome. So before we talk about that any further, these two weird round pieces here should be welded to the exterior hull. They're essentially crushing tube buffers in case we hit against another ship during underway replenishment or something like that. These two have been removed from the hull. I believe it was when the ship was being taken through the Panama Canal for the 10th and final time back in 2000. We needed all this help we can get squeezing through the canal. So the grading on here and some of the other features here on the inside, again, all representative of the drone. The drones essentially had lawnmower engines on them. They weren't all that powerful, and they were, I believe, gasoline, just regular gasoline driven. So it's not the JP-5 that we're using with our helicopters. It's not the marine diesel that the ship is operating off in the 80s. So the fuel for the drones would have been stored in a collapsing rubber bladder back here, and it would have been down inside of this. And you can see these chains are attached to a tray that's on, it's almost like a depth charge rack. It's an angled rack back here, and they've actually cut away most of the back of this gun tub. The idea there, we've showed this in a previous video long time ago, about 100 feet up the flight deck there on the side, there's this big pipe. It's about a 3 or 4 inch diameter pipe. It's probably 3 or 4 feet high. Just sitting on the deck. It's got a wire attached to it, and it's mounted on the bottom at a single point, so it like hinges. So you can throw that pipe from one position to another. It pulls the wire, and it essentially pulls a pin out of this cart, which would allow it to fall right off the back of the ship into the water. The idea there is if we get a flight deck fire, we don't want the gasoline for the drones just here able to explode. It has to be close so we can refuel the drones, but we don't want it to endanger the rest of the ship. So you can throw that, drop it overboard. Keep in mind, oil is thinner than water. It will float on the water. So after the fire's been secured, we can come back and pick that up and get the gasoline back on board. Or, you know, we have enough fossil fuels in Texas. We'll just refill the next time we go to a resupply ship. But we've got options. The other main feature in here is over this side. You can actually see the reel with the refueling cable. It is painted purple like avgas, JP-5. I'm honestly not sure if this is attached to the bladder that would be in that cart, or if it goes through this hatch here. Down below is where the aviation gasoline is stored, so this might also be the helicopter gasoline coming up from the tanks down below. We can both refuel helicopters directly on the flight deck, or hovering helicopters can haul the fuel hose up and refuel midair while hovering over the battleship. So what do you think? Was the use of these gun tubs in World War II more important? And the look of the ship at that time more compelling? Or do you think these got a good reuse in the 1980s and that service period was more important? Let us know in the comments section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to donate to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.